Last time we had spoken about how to deal with information when we receive it from different sources, on what constitutes backbiting and what doesn't constitute backbiting. And we had talked about if somebody who is honest comes with us or comes to us with a piece of information telling us about someone else who might want to harm us or someone might want to do something to us, what did we say about that person? How do I deal with that information? Somebody who's honest, somebody who I know, upright. Right. So the moment I reject what it is, the information that he's giving me, I've now accused him. So instead of running away from one problem, I've ended up in another issue. So how do I deal with it then? If I know somebody's honest and he's bringing me a piece of information, do I trust it? Can I trust it? Yes, I can. All right. So I can trust what he's saying, but I should also remember to keep it and take it with a grain of salt. Meaning that if he gave me a piece of information and I acted on it, would I be accountable? No, I wouldn't. Why? Because he's honest, right? He's an honest person, and I know him to be honest. But if I was smart, or what else should I do? How else can I confirm this information? Trust but verify. Sure, no, I'm completely with it. So in this situation, what are some steps that I could take as an individual if I'm getting this piece of information from someone? Okay, I could double check with other sources. He's the only one that's told me. Now what can I do? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. All right. I can verify the story with him. What else? You guys are missing like a really important component here. What else do I need to research or look into? Yes. All right, context is important for sure, but there's something else, yeah. All right, any biases. This is something that's really important. Remember, I have to look into the nature of the relationship between him and the person who he's speaking about. Because if they're known to be enemies, or if they're known to have problems, or if they're known to have issues in the past, can I trust that information with the same authority? No, absolutely not. Hey, what if a person appears to be honest? They appear to be upright. I see him at the masjid pretty regularly. He's involved in a few programs. I have no reason to doubt him. How do I take that information? Should I trust it? Yes. Right, I take it with an open mind. I would definitely take it with a grain of salt. There's no reason for me to trust that person completely. And how can I take that stance? Why is that okay if I don't trust this person even though apparently he seems upright? Because I don't know him. And at this point, if I didn't trust the information, it's not because I'm accusing him of being a liar. It's because what? I just don't know him. And we had spoken about this last time too. When it comes to issues of trust, it's important not to have distrust of everyone. But at the same time, it's important to lock our doors. It's important to take precautions. And why do we take those precautions? Because we distrust society? Yes, some of us maybe. Oh, yes. Sure. Right, so people would look at me as like, man, this guy is really naive, right? Really vulnerable, really gullible. But why do we do that? Why do we take those steps? Why do I even bother locking my car? Or why do I even bother locking my front door? All right, so I don't want to seduce someone, for sure. That's absolutely 100%. And that's something that's really important. And there are two ways of doing that, either with worldly things, right? Leaving things out, leaving things if leaving things in the open, leaving really a specialty coffee out in the corridor. There's so many things that we can do that really will test that will test people. And there are things that we shouldn't do. We shouldn't test others, and we shouldn't seduce others with these things. And that's in a worldly sense. In a relationship, how do I test others in my relationship? We said this by not what? If someone takes advantage of me in a friendship, am I partially to blame? Or no, I'm not to blame. I'm sorry? Okay, both people are to blame. I agree. But why am I to blame? He took advantage of me. Huh? I let it happen. Okay, that can be part of it, but not always. Yes. I'm sorry? Okay, That's fine and that's good, but my question here, where is my fault? I'm sorry? Okay, if I allow it to happen multiple times, but all of this is in relation to a larger issue. What is that issue? I open the door, okay, how? Yes. Because I didn't set boundaries. That's the most important thing in this. That if I don't set boundaries with the person in front of me and I get angry that they took advantage of me, I am partially to blame because I didn't set my boundaries in the first place. Now, if I set boundaries and they went past those boundaries, what do we call that? That's not taking advantage. That's what? That's just complete disrespect, right? Like, I told you very clearly, I dislike this, I don't want you to do this, I don't want you to talk to me in this way, and you still continued and persisted. That shows that that person doesn't actually respect me, right? That person doesn't actually respect me. Does it mean that it can't happen a few times? Yeah, for sure. You know, we have to understand that relationships are very dynamic, right? They're always shifting. The markers are always shifting. The goalposts are always shifting. And in addition to all of those things, we as individuals are always what? We're always changing, right? The movie that I liked last week is not going to be the same one I like in a year, right? The ice cream that I like now is not going to be, I might not even like ice cream in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like, there's these things that are constantly changing, these goalposts that are constantly shifting. We have to keep those things in mind when we're dealing with each other. I have a lot of, not a lot, but there are some young couples that would approach me, you know, they're like maybe 17, 18, 19 years old saying, hey, we want to get married, we're in college together. And usually my first question is what? What do you guys think? Do your parents approve? That's definitely part of the process, for sure. Even before that. Finances. Like, okay, what are you going to do to support her? How are you going to support her if you plan on getting married? Because finances is the number one reason that marriages fall apart. And why? Because it usually, it's a cascade effect. So it'll lead to disrespect and a whole bunch of other issues and a whole bunch of other problems. So if I can't financially support her, why are you planning on getting married? Well, I don't want to miss the opportunity, right? This is usually the response. That I don't want to miss the opportunity now. It's like, okay, well, what's going to happen in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Am I going to be the same person I am today that I am in 3 years? And if it was meant to be, if this person is that invested in you, and you are that invested in that person, you should at the least be able to what? Wait. And get into a position where you are more stable in order to allow that marriage to flourish and survive. Because essentially, and I know some of you attended previously, but marriage is essentially what? I use this a lot. It's a gamble, right? Marriage is a gamble. And I need to do the most I can to stack the cards in my favor, right? Like, I have to do that. I have to, from the onset, try to do as much as I can to help the chances of this marriage to be successful or to survive. Essentially, marriage is a daily choice. Right. I make the choice every day to stay married. You know, just like my wife makes the choice every day to stay married. And if we want to keep making that choice every day, we have to actively invest in it. And if I'm not invested and she's not invested, it's just not going to work. A lot of people, they like talking about happiness and, you know, these type of things. You guys have heard the saying, happy wife, happy life? Huh? Have you heard that one before? Huh? I think it's fundamentally wrong. I do. I really believe it's fundamentally wrong. Why? Because you deserve to be respected, you deserve to be loved, you deserve to be honored, but I cannot bring you happiness. Happiness is something that's internal. Right? I can't make anybody else happy. I can't do that. That's not possible. Just like I can't expect anyone to make me happy. Qana'ah, or self-fulfillment, you know, all of these are personal issues. And if I require external inputs to give me fulfillment and to bring me happiness, you know what's going to happen? I'm going to keep raising the bar and looking for the next happiness. This sounds very similar to what? Like drugs, right? You know, for me to get that next dopamine hit, I'm going to set the bar higher. I'm going to push even more. I'm sorry? So, and this is something that's important, you know. So I would tweak the statement a little bit, like happy husband, happy life. But why? Because happiness is internal, right? How did I get here? What was I talking about? Huh? Right? I start going off on these rants, right? You had a question, Fazia? No? Okay. Oh, boundaries. Thank you. Jazakallah khair, Iman. So, boundaries, setting those boundaries. If I don't set boundaries, it's not fair for me when the person takes advantage of those boundaries. And like I said, if I did set those boundaries and people keep crossing them, that means I'm not being respected. And what should I do with that relationship? Yeah, I should snip it. I should cut it. I should get out of that relationship as soon as possible. And we had also talked about relationships before. Okay, what if it's a relationship that is not one that is like breakable? Blood relationships being a very good example of that. I can't break blood relationships, but a relationship falls within a spectrum. So I can maintain that relationship hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, Eids only. You know what I mean? Like there are ways to maintain those relationships because you're not cutting them off. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "La tuhajar akhaka fawqa thalath." Don't abandon your brother for more than 3 days. The key word here being what? Abandon. Like I'm intentionally abandoning this person. But if I don't check up on my friend like for a week, is that a problem? No, it's not an issue. I'm not obligated to keep in contact with every single person on my contact list. You know, I wouldn't have any free time if that was the case. It's like, oh man, it's about to hit day 3. I need to go through my contact list again and make sure that I'm keeping everyone with it. Or send out a WhatsApp message, have a group chat with like all of my contacts. That would be ridiculous. But there are different ways of keeping in contact, and relationships are within a spectrum, and that's important to keep in mind. You know, it's like, oh, you know, well, it's my brother. Okay, you don't have to meet your brother every day, right? It's not necessary. And for some relationships, the more often you meet, what happens? Like the worse it gets, right? You end up having more and more issues and more problems, and sometimes distance in those relationships is very healthy, right? And it's very normal. So, yeah, boundaries. Make sure you set them. So we had said that some people do appear to be upright and honest, but we take that information with a grain of salt. And whenever I think ill of a Muslim, I should make dua for them. Right? Remember we said that when I feel something, when I feel animosity, or I feel ill will, or I feel jealousy, I should do the complete opposite of that. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to make dua for the person, because it is one of the ways that, inshallah, the shaitan would actually stop tempting us. Advising people in private, this is something that is really important. We said that the key to any advice is establishing a relationship. And I know I probably sound like a broken record. I've said the word relationship I don't know how many 100 times in the last 3 minutes. But it is so fundamental. It is so crucial, and it is so integrated into our religion in understanding the nature of all of these different relationships that we have. If my relationship with my father and my mother and my brother and my sister and my coworkers and my students and my mentors and my coworkers and my friends and my brothers and my sisters and my children is good, then this is indicative of my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because what is good manners? What is khuluq? Khuluq is being good with others. You know, smiling in your brother's face, being not backbiting, not, you know, tail carrying, not slandering anyone. When I do those things with people, I'm essentially respecting them, right? Because I'm not doing any of those things. And there is no one who doesn't want to be respected. There is no one who doesn't want to be celebrated. Like, we all want to be celebrated in different ways. I know there's like, regardless of what the khilaf is on the issue, is like, yeah, you know, we don't celebrate Mother's Day. It's like, okay, what do you do? Well, we celebrate our mother every day. It's like, okay, that's cool, that's great. How do you do that? Well, I take out the trash. Okay, that's not celebrating her. Like, it's really, you're supposed to do that. Like, celebrating someone means doing something special for them, making them feel special, right? And we all deserve to be, like, to feel special sometimes. So whether that means me, like, you know, my family taking my family somewhere and going somewhere that I like, and them having to deal with it. Why are they showing patience, and why are they bearing it? Because they want me to feel special. And it's the same thing when we take our sons or daughters, or we take our siblings, or we take our parents, or we take our wives out. Why? Because we want them to feel special. We want them to feel celebrated. We want them to feel honored. And if it's so sad that I can only celebrate, a family member or someone once a year, I mean, at least to do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at the least. If you can't do it, and it should be something that happens regularly. Celebrating our spouses, celebrating our parents, celebrating our children, and it can happen in different ways. It doesn't mean that, you have to go and buy an expensive gift every time. No. What is something that you enjoy? Well, I enjoy going to the park. I enjoy biking. I enjoy boating. All of these different activities are definitely out there, and they're available, and they're choices that we should take advantage of in order for us to feel celebrated. So we'd say here that also, how do I determine if I'm sincere or not? I'm sincere if I love it more that the person leave the sin himself. Like, I prefer that I don't have to advise him. And once I've reached that point, I know, inshallah, that I am being sincere. Assumption, part of the issue of dhann is that it leads to spying. Part of the issue of assumptions is that it leads to spying. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا. I'm sorry? Dhann? Dhann is suspicion or assumption. Yeah. So do not spy over another. So this is what assumptions lead to. Why? Because I'm constantly, once I make an assumption, I don't know, I can't even say it right. Once I make an assumption about someone, very naturally, what am I going to do? Huh? Or I'm drawing conclusions, I'm doing all these things. I'm going to try to verify that. Right? I'm going to try to verify that assumption. And what do? I start spying on people. I start seeing what they're doing in their, in their free time. I try to figure out where they spend their money. I try to figure out how much they earn, so I can calculate how much are they spending on alcohol, even though they don't drink alcohol. You know what I mean? Like we because it snowballs, right? It snowballs into this thing that is extremely evil. It snowballs into this thing that is extremely problematic, and this is why it's so important to stay away from assuming assuming bad thoughts about people. So what is spying? Basically, spying is to remove the cover that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed over someone, and to the point where you had known it, it would have been better for your heart and religion, meaning that your attitude wouldn't have changed toward this person. So there are some things that we hear about someone, and like in subhanAllah, it's amazing how brittle trust is. You know what I mean? Like it's how easily breakable it. Like sometimes just one event. Right, just one instance is enough to completely break somebody's trust. And you can know that person for years. You can know them to be good and doing a whole bunch of things, and all of a sudden you hear that they lied. Like a big lie. And what happens? That person, you know what I mean? That person was here, and all of a sudden, like their whole status falls in your eyes. This is why it's so important. Can somebody close that door? Because I know Abdullah is going to get started. So like it's Huh? Abdulillah. They're spying? I need to verify that. So, what happens is that we try to reinforce these ill notions that we have about others, and it'll lead to us doing these things. And now we had said that this becomes so brittle, right? This becomes so brittle. Just imagine if you get caught in the middle of spying. How is that person now going to feel about you? And we had said trust is a very fragile vessel, right? It's like walking around with a glass, literally. And all it takes is, it tips over, and that's it. You will never want to talk to or deal with that person again. And forgiveness is something that's really interesting too, right? This is something, I don't know if we've spoken about it before. Forgiveness is not a switch. Right? Forgiveness is a process. And there are different avenues to deal with forgiveness. I can forgive that person in this world and in the next. Like, I don't hold that person accountable. I can forgive them. I can deal with them in the same way that I dealt with them before. I can forgive them in the next world, but hold them accountable in this world. And there's nothing wrong with that. What would it look like? So basically, if somebody stole money from me, I would say, it's okay, don't worry about it. But now I wouldn't be friends with that person anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because basically what I'm promising him is, like, when we stand in front of Allah, I'm not going to bring this up. This is not an issue that I'm going to talk about. The best is to forgive, right? That's always the best. But it can also be subjective. Like, for example, if somebody kills a parent, right? It's not as easy to, it's very easy for us to walk around with our forgiveness club and be like, it's better to forgive, you need to. No, it's my right. It's my right. I get to choose whether I want to forgive or not. Nobody can force me. Nobody can emotionally blackmail me. Nobody can spiritually blackmail me. It is my choice. I have full right not to forgive this person. And you'll find many times, like this happens in communities, like, just forgive him, he was doing this, and da-da-da. It is my choice. Leave me alone. I can talk about if I want to forgive him or I don't. That's up to me. But if I decide not to forgive someone, now I have no right to bring it up again and again. Why? Because I've left his affair with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this last one is where many of us get caught up, right? We say we forgive him, but we keep talking about it. Did I really forgive him then? Or is it lip service? Right? For many of us, it's just lip service. Like we claim that we forgave that person, and we keep talking about it, but we still hold a grudge in our hearts. Like, is it not better just to say, hey, listen, I don't forgive you, and I'm leaving my affair with Allah, and I need to move on now. But if you look in all of these scenarios, the thing that they share in common is that you have to move on. It doesn't matter what it is. Sitting on an issue and like, I don't forgive, I'm leaving this person's affair with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I trust Allah will deal with it. And if I'm sitting there and I'm still holding a grudge in my heart, then I am not trusting Allah to deal with it. Because I'm still sitting on it. And where does this apply? Sometimes this applies even in relationships. Right? So if the trust is broken in the relationship, what happens is that one spouse will use it as a weapon against the other one. It's like, oh yeah, remember when you did that? Or remember when you did that? And then every time something happens, oh, remember when you did that? This is not forgiveness, and this is not forgiveness. That's the problem. This is a weapon. And the one who was once oppressed now ends up becoming is that a healthy interaction between people? Or is it better to be like, hey, listen, don't forgive me. Just stop talking about it. But many times we get caught up in that cycle. And it is dangerous. It is something that's extremely dangerous. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. But using somebody's mistake as a weapon against them, that's not what's intended. This is clearly not what's intended. That's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Oh, I mean, that's different. That's different because you forgive. Because what did we say? That we forgive them in the akhirah, but not in this dunya. Because I can forgive someone in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it doesn't mean I'm going to spend time with you. Some people, they think these things are connected. Like, oh, well, I thought you forgave me. Yeah, I didn't say we were going to be best friends. Changing the nature of those. What about someone who actually wronged me? And are there people like who can go back to the way things were before? Yeah, there are. Like, mashallah, some people very muttaqi, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made their hearts extremely light. That may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from them. But there are certain things, like it's just hard to forgive. And a very clear example of this, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Wahshi. Like he forgave him. But what did he say? He's like, man, listen, I just can't look at you. Every time I look at you, I remember my uncle. Wahshi? It's a name. So, who was Wahshi? In Badr. No, in Uhud. Yeah. Hind. It was Abu Sufyan's wife. But I mean, So I mean, their narration, whatever, it's like a historical narration. But ala kullin, so basically what happened was Wahshi, he threw a spear and he killed Hamza, who was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's uncle. So Wahshi ended up accepting Islam, and he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, you're the one that killed my uncle? He said, yes. He said, how did you kill him? He was like, well, he was between the swordsmen, and like he knocked down a few guys. Once I had an opening, I threw the spear and it hit him in the stomach, and he bled out. So the Prophet ﷺ, he after that he's like, I don't, I can't see you, I can't look at you, and he went on to kill Musaylima, or was it Musaylima, or there was another one? It was Musaylima. Okay. Yes, totally. Yeah. Yeah. That's it's called spiritual blackmail. Yeah. 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 No, you can. Yeah. Like, forgiveness is an internal process, and forgiveness is something that we own. Like, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has given me that choice. Who is anybody to take that away from me? Yes. You need to forgive. Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Spiritual blackmail. Yes. Yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. Yeah, nobody's doubting the better or the worse or things. But at the end of the day, is there always a better way to do something? There is, and I don't mean to diminish it. Please, please don't misunderstand. Like, all of you guys are just gonna hold grudges the rest of your life. But like, it's it it's it's a very internal process. It's a very personal process, and to get encouragement and other things, yeah, that's good. And the nice thing about forgiveness, it's something that can always be revisited. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, well, I've made up my mind, therefore I can't. No, man, it's something that can always be revisited. And which is why it's so important to be patient and to make decisions knowingly. Right? You don't want to rush into decisions, because usually what happens immediately after you're wronged, you have a group of people come, oh, you should forgive him, akhi. He didn't mean it. And like, you haven't really processed. Right? Like, it's in the heat of the moment, many of us, we just don't have the ability to process, but we're receiving all this pressure, so immediately what are we going to do? Like, I forgive him, and your heart be like, oh, I don't really forgive him. Like, So it's better that we come to personal terms with these things and understand and kind of process these things, and be honest with the person who's coming and seeking forgiveness. Because a person could come up to you and be like, I'm really sorry, I did this, or I stole from you, or I oppressed you, or I backbit you, and a couple things can happen, right? We can be very spiteful sometimes, and we just tell them like, I don't think I can. A more honest answer might be like, listen, I don't think I can right now. And then just revisit it again. Like I said, forgiveness is a process. There's no reason to rush anything. Totally. Yeah, blackmail. No, it didn't say. My response would be like, why did Allah give me a choice? If Allah had willed, He could have obligated forgiveness, but He didn't. If Allah had willed, He wouldn't have He wouldn't have given us corporal and capital punishment. Like, there are consequences to every decision, everything that happens. How is it possible Allah would give me ownership of something? Allah is not like a trickster. He's not trying to troll us and be like, all right, I'm giving you a choice, but if you choose the wrong one, like, that's a human thing. You know what I mean? That's a human thing, to give people a choice, but you only really want them to choose one thing. Right? That's a human element. That's not something that's divine. Yes. Hmm. Sure. Tell that to someone whose mother was stabbed, or tell that to someone, or someone who was raped. Like, to forgive the person that raped them. Be like, no, Allah wants you to. No, you have to. It's like women beat, raped multiple times. Be like, no, you have to forgive all the people who did that to you. I don't mean to give graphic examples, but these things happen. It's not like, oh, we're living in a world where, everybody, the worst that they're doing is like, they called you stupid. It's not. We don't live in a soft world like that. They're like, bad things happen. Like, they do. And sometimes they happen by accident. If La samahallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve our parents and have mercy on those who have passed. But if somebody by accident killed your mother in a car crash, it's an accident, right? Is it easy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not, there are not a lot of easy decisions, and we can't assume that, like, we as people are just monolithic and we're robots and this is how we process things, because that's not how we work. There's a lot of hardship, there's a lot of difficulty in our lives, and we have to understand how to process it. But, and again, like I asked this question, why would Allah give us a choice but intended not giving a choice? That's just playing. Like, you know what I mean? It's the definition of a troll. And like that's not a divine characteristic at all. That is completely human. Yes. Yeah. But is that a condition to moving on? Like, think about it. Do I need to, if I don't forgive this person and say his affair is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't that one type of closure? All right, it is. It's a type of closure. It'd be like, you know, I know a brother who was robbed at gunpoint. You know, extremely inconvenienced. Extremely inconvenienced. And you're gonna walk up to him and be like, "Oh, it's okay. Akhi, Allah will give you a better phone," and he'll give. That's probably not the first thing he wants to hear. Like, being robbed at gunpoint, or just like those situations where your life is actually in danger, and then someone coming up to you, never having experienced that before. You know, you want to talk about a place of privilege? Like, someone who's never gotten that experience before, all of a sudden they're telling you and be like, no, you have to forgive that person. Like, why? Again, why did Allah give me a choice if I was obligated to forgive? That doesn't make sense. That's just playing. And it doesn't make me, does it make me a better person to forgive? Yes. But does it make me a worse person to not? No. Not at all. Why? Because that is essentially my right. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He gives me money, it's better for me to do what with it? To give sadaqah. Yes. Does it make me a bad person if I don't give a lot? No. Why? Because this is my right. I obviously, if I'm fulfilling my obligations, and that's understood. But, like, okay, if I'm fulfilling my obligations, and I'm very rich, but I'm not giving a lot of my money in sadaqah. Okay, but I'm fulfilling my obligations. I'm not hurting anyone. Would it be better? But that's the thing with better. There's always going to be better. Always. تفضل. Yeah. 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 So here, let's reverse the situation. Remember how we said, like, okay, well, we can't expect a woman who's been raped to forgive her rapist. What if the rapist is asking for forgiveness? Relationships are complicated, right? It's not easy. If this person is sincere and that person is not forgiving them and holding it as a grudge, is it possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will overlook it? Absolutely. Inna Allaha la yaghfiru an yushraka bihi wa yaghfiru ma duna dhalik liman yasha. That Allah does not forgive if anyone makes partners with Him, but He forgives everything other than that. You know, I can't stand in front of Allah and be like, how can you forgive him? Like, na'udhu billah, right? You know, it's not my choice to make. Like, I'm not in that position where I can say to Allah and, you know, astaghfirullah, how could you forgive this person? We don't, like, people are dynamic. They're beings, right? There's so many life experiences that they have. I can never gauge anybody's sincerity. I can never gauge anybody's taqwa. So even if the person doesn't forgive, is it possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might lessen his punishment, might take some of his good deeds, might lower his place in paradise, might send him to hellfire for some time? Yes. Right? Any of those things are a possibility. Because at the end of the day, forgiveness, yes, in this world, it's in my hands. But in the next world, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. Does that help? No. So, how do you get that? It involves a lot of sincerity. It involves a lot of introspection and realizing how flawed we are. It involves taking perception of the broader picture and looking like, man, is this really something I want to hold this person accountable for on a day where we're going to, that's where the spiritual blackmail can actually, it can come in. Because I'm blackmailing myself, right? It's not an outside pressure. And we do it all the time. Like, we try to convince ourselves to do things, and I can use all of those things to convince myself. I just shouldn't use them to, like, pressure someone else. Yes. Sure. You would do. So if you don't have access to them or they passed away, then seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? That's the only way you can do it. Give sadaqah on their behalf. Like, do whatever you can to. And the thing is, a person might ask, okay, for how long? Like, how long do I keep making tawbah, or how long do I keep asking, or how long do I keep doing these deeds? You keep doing until your heart is lightened. Like, when my that burden and that remorse from my heart finally is removed, then that means I'm making progress, and inshallah, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had lifted it from me. So when is backbiting allowed? Al-Ghazali mentions 6 places. Is it revealing injustice, assisting and repelling evil and turning the oppressor to good, seeking fatwa, warning Muslims of evil. He's known by a name that points out his shortcoming, pointing out someone proud of his sins. And we'll talk about these, inshallah, in detail. Revealing injustice. So this is going to an authority, right? This is going to an authority, mentioning that a person is a cheater or oppressive, blah, 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 with the condition what? What condition do you think is placed on this situation? Yeah, you're going to a judge. You know clearly. Okay, how would I know clearly? Based on what is being said here, is it okay for me to snitch? What do you guys think? It depends, right? It depends. In general, you can't snitch. In general. If these things happen to me directly, right? If this person cheated me, I have every right to go and ask my right from that person. You guys following? So if he wronged me, if he stole from me, if he lied to me, if he hurt me, I have every right to go to the judge to complain about this person for violating my rights. But if I see it happen to someone else, can I go snitch? Because why? Because it's up to the person. Right? I can't make that decision on behalf of someone else. We'll get to it. But in general, if something, because the thing is, it might be a one-off scenario, right? It might be the way that he's dealing with me. It's not necessary that he's dealing with every single person in this way. There are a few narrations here. The creditor has the most right to speak. This is Hadith Bukhari and Muslim. Why? Because it's happening to him. Yes, Imam. No snitching. Sure. So, but are there? I agree with what you're saying. Are there legal consequences to a reputation? What? So if a mechanic is known to be a thief, like he's going to mischarge you, what are the legal ramifications of that? Okay, and you just lose trust. Like the business, like people wouldn't do business with him. But there's no you can't go to a judge and be like, he's known to take advantage of people. The judge is going to be like, okay, don't go to him. It's very organic, a lot of these things. And a lot of this stuff, it actually makes sense when we sit down and we look at them. Procrastination and paying debt by a wealthy man is injustice. This is called matul ghani. Basically, if a rich man borrows money from me, is it okay for me to delay giving it back to him? And what does that have to do with what we're talking about? Right, it has to do with dealing with people and be like, oh, he's rich anyway. Right, he's rich anyway. He doesn't need my money. What is a couple $1,000s gonna do? This guy's a millionaire. I'll give it back to him later. Huh? No, that's just straight stealing. So here, delay in payment on part of the one who possesses means make it lawful to dishonor and punish him. All of these are just different types of oppression. All of these are just different ways to keep in mind on how we can reveal injustice in different situations. Repelling evil and returning back to good. Tfadal. Yeah. Sure. If they what? Who decides that? If they're a child, okay, that's a good question. If they're a child, the guardian's responsible. You have to understand, like there's a social network there's a social net, I should say, that catches all of these people. Like there's nobody who's not caught in the social net. What about a person who's an orphan? Has no family? Huh? There would still have to be a legal guardian. He doesn't have a legal guardian. Then he would be a ward of the state. Like there's always somebody to catch somebody. Like there's always going to be somebody responsible. No, because the state is responsible, not you. Huh? Again, Yakhi, that's an assumption. That's an excellent point. What if I report on behalf of someone else? So there are a couple of things that are happen. Now, if that person denies it, there's actually legal repercussions against me, because it would be considered false witness. Sure, like what? But what are you saying? No. If you see something strange, it's not my job to investigate. Whose job is it? It's the job of the police. So if I see something strange, because am I accusing anyone of anything? No. It's like, man, there's a car that's been parked here for like 3 weeks, and the tints are all blacked out. Have I accused the owner of the car of anything? No. I just feel it's worth investigating. Yes. Okay, sure. So even a person who's endangering themselves, what can we do? If a person's slitting their wrists, for example, what do I do? So that's different. Like self-harm is a very unique, in a different situation, and not just that. Like a person can deny self-harm, but what happens? Right? There's evidence. It's like there's clear evidence there that these things are happening. But the problem is coming in as a third party or third state. It really depends on the situation. Even being like an imam or a teacher or a lawyer or whatever, in the state of Virginia, you have something that's called mandatory reporting. So if you have a child who keeps playing with the mic, huh? Does he want to make it then or? Oh, okay. No, تفضل أذن.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح
So in all of these hadith, yani, for procrastination and paying debts, meaning that the person who gave the debt, the creditor, he can take the other man to court, saying that he's delaying paying his debts because it's a type of injustice. Also, delaying payment is a way and a means to take an individual to court. But again, it's the idea behind this is, in general, people should be accountable for and to themselves. This is something that's very important. The Islamic idea of like victimhood or like this victim mentality, Islam is against oppression and allowing ourselves to be oppressed. Right? We have to make sure that we don't fall into either of those categories. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and our families. So here, the first example is repelling evil and returning back to good. Uthman radiallahu an, he didn't return Umar's salam. So Umar radiallahu an was walking by, he gave salam, Uthman didn't respond. So Umar went to Abu Bakr and he complained about it, and he called Uthman to him to say, hey, what happened? Why aren't you returning his salam? This was immediately after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, and he was so sad, he didn't respond to Umar radiallahu anhu salam. It reached Abu Umar that Abu Jundal had an alcohol problem, so Umar radiallahu anhu, he wrote him a letter quoting the verse, Hamim, Tanzil al-Kitab min Allah al-Aziz al-Alim, Ghafir al-Dhanb, wa Qabil al-Tawbah, Shadid al-Iqab. Hamim, the scripture is sent down from Allah the Almighty, the All-Knowing, forgiver of sins and acceptor of repentance, severe in punishment. So he sent this as a reminder. He sent this as a reminder in both of these situations. So over here, this is something that happened publicly. This is something that happened publicly, so he reported it because it happened publicly. Here, why can Umar call out Abu Jundal? You guys probably don't know, but anyway, yeah, because he was an authority figure. He was a governor. He was a governor. What does this tell us? That we are allowed to call out public figures. Why? They have volunteered to put themselves in the public, or they've been appointed to that position. Like even if you're appointed to that position, you have a choice to step down. Right? You have a choice. You want to be treated as a private citizen, then you have to enter and become a private citizen. But the moment that we enter the public sphere, I remember even like during the hiring process, like they had said to me, well, you know, you're going to receive a lot of problems, and like, you know, people. I was like, listen, I decided to get into this field, right? I know the consequences of entering da'wah, and part of the consequences of entering da'wah is that you become a public figure, and when you're a public figure, it's much easier to get criticized. I can tell you that by experience. Sure. Yeah. So if you did it in private, yeah, you're absolutely right. This would actually apply. It would be the same situation. Yeah, but the example, he only shared the example here because it happened publicly. If it happened in private, it would have been an example for the first. So this is all conditional with his intention being correct. Otherwise, it's haram. What does that mean? Yes, right? If he's just trying to expose him for personal gain, then this immediately becomes haram, and it becomes impermissible. Like, haha, I got him. You know, I mean, I'm going to go report him about this or that and that, even if he's a public figure or whatever the case might be. The intention should always be what? To correct. That should always be the intention, to correct. And once my intention is not to correct them, then this action now becomes accountable. Seeking fatwa. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Here, the example, Hind bint Utbah, she went to the Prophet ﷺ, complained about Abu Sufyan, saying that he's miserly and does not give enough money for her and her son's daily expenses. Is it okay for me to take money without his knowledge? The Prophet ﷺ responded saying, take what is enough for you in moderation. So here, he sallallahu alayhi wasallam, she mentioned his miserliness, and she mentioned the fact that he was being oppressive, but the Prophet ﷺ didn't say anything about that. He accepted that she said that. Why? Because she was seeking fatwa. So it has to be relevant to the fatwa. So whatever I'm seeking, it's like, you know, I can't. Let me think of an example. So if a woman comes seeking fatwa, saying that, hey, my husband isn't paying for me and he's ugly, right? You know what I mean? That it's not. You're not adding any information. You're not helping give any more context to the fatwa in that situation. So it has to be relevant. The information needs to be relevant to the to the fatwa. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely. But so over here, there's an actual do, like versus a perceived do. Does that make sense? So in a Robin Hood scenario, the problem is that Robin Hood, what? He feels that he has a right to the rich, to the rich's money. In this situation, there is an actual right because of their husband. So keep an eye on those bank accounts. So over here, warning Muslims of evil: if you see someone with knowledge becoming inclined toward an innovator or sinner in fear that he will be influenced by them, then he should expose their innovation and or sin due to fear of him falling into it alone, no other reason. Otherwise it would be merely an illusion driven by jealousy, with the shaitan driving as mercy toward others. This I want to spend a little bit of time with, because mashallah, there's a group that really enjoys this. A group, yes. Well, not a group. I think it's more than one. There's just one that has become very well known for doing this. But here, number one, what is an innovator? Right. No, that's an innovation. What is an innovator? Huh? So a person who does an innovation, are they an innovator? Yes. It's that simple, right? If a Muslim commits a sin, he is therefore a sinner, right? That's not how it works, but so what is an innovator? People who wear tasbih on their hands. I agree, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Huh? So you're intentionally going against the Prophet ﷺ, Allah and His Messenger? So a person who intentionally violates Allah and His Messenger, there can only be two types: either a sinner, or a kafir, right? It's not an innovator. What is the difference between an innovator and the non-Muslim? I'm sorry. So he's adding to. But what gives him the right to add stuff? No, what makes him feel like he can add stuff? Yes. Yeah. Go ahead. The knowledge of what? Okay, that sounds like everyone. Like we all think we can't be influenced, right? Tafadhal. Yeah. Sure, but why am I doing that? So here, is there any innovator who says, I do not follow the Quran and the Sunnah? No, right? Like you're still Muslim. They're still Muslim, right? Is there any doubt? Okay, what group of people is agreed upon that they're on innovation? What group amongst the Muslims is agreed upon that they are innovators? The Shia, right? Right? So the Shia, right? Historically, there have been Ahl Sunnah and the Shia. طيب, what makes Shia innovators? The 12 Imam thing? Sure. I'm sorry, there's a difference in belief and practices. Right? No, I mean there are a number of things that actually remove them from mainstream Sunni Islam. So these people are considered innovators. طيب, what about everyone else? So is this label an easy one? It's definitely not. It's definitely not. And how do I establish one is an innovator? And is he an innovator because he doesn't agree with my beliefs or with the beliefs of mainstream Sunni Islam? These are all valid questions. If he disagrees with me, that just makes him what? An innovator. No. No, if he disagrees with me, that just makes him a Muslim who disagrees with me, right? That's all it is. Why? Because I am not Islam. You guys following me? Like, I am not Islam. I do not, I am not the embodiment of Islam. And if you go against me, you have gone against Islam. That's not how that works. Unfortunately, for many people, it is. If you do not fit my 6, 7, 10, 12, 20 creedal values, you are now outside the fold of Ahl Sunnah. But it's not how it works at all. So it's a very subjective one. It is a very subjective term. Versus this is a little bit easier. But even this, and I think this is something that's important to also keep in mind when we talk about because this is about situations where it is permissible to backbite. What am I backbiting? About the innovation that this person has fallen into. That's what I'm backbiting. Is it okay for me now to be like, yeah, he's the innovator, he's stupid, right? It doesn't work like that. Why? Because he's still Muslim and he's still what? His blood is still sacred, right? Wow. Right? His blood is still sacred. His honor is still sacred, and that has to be preserved. The problem is not with the person, the problem is with his innovation. And it's important that is what is pointed out. Because am I worried about people following him, or am I worried about people following the innovation? The innovation, right? Because he as an individual, he can be on an innovation today, but he can change his mind tomorrow, right? Like all of the Imams, they all died with making tawbah. Sorry, it's an inside joke. So here I have to make sure that it is not an illusion, number one. An illusion can be because he is against me, therefore he is an innovator, right? This is an illusion. I have created this illusion in myself, and that is not driven by knowledge, that is usually driven by jealousy. Yes? I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, and it's usually driven by jealousy. Because they're jealous of the institution, or the individual, or the speaker, or the fame, or the number of books, or whatever the case might be. That is more of a driving force than knowledge is. And how do we know that? Because the people who are repeating this, they haven't actually researched or done anything. What are they doing? They're just parroting what Sheikh XYZ has told them to say. And why did Sheikh XYZ probably say that? Very honestly, probably because of jealousy. Jealousy is a very natural feeling. How we act on it and curbing it and fighting it is very challenging. The problem with the innovation is what? I've now used the deen to justify me speaking about this person. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. So, inshallah, well, you know what, we'll come back to this. We have about 8 minutes until Iqamah, but I'll stop here. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khayri khalqi nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam. So there's no class this Saturday, Sunday, okay? Even though Ramadan starts on Friday, it'll be from next Saturday, Sunday, inshallah. So Saturday, not the April 2nd, but April 9th will be the Usul class. It'll be after Salat al-Asr. And then Sunday, inshallah, will be the Tazkiyah class, which will also be after Salat al-Asr. We'll finish close to about like 6:10, 6:15 or so. That'll still give you guys a couple hours to get back and do iftar, or if you have to go somewhere, inshallah, and hopefully there'll be enough time for that. Otherwise, we'll stop here. Any questions? No? So, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.